Welcome back to the APSCC 2020 live webinar series. I'm Christopher Slaughter, and we're pleased to have you with us today for Space Economy and Investment Trends, the latest in our webinar series. In just a moment, I'll be turning it over to David Mittling from Spectral. He will be our moderator for this session. Joining him will be executives from Axo Space, Made in Space, and PD Aerospace. Joining us for that to talk about the latest in the new space sector and trends toward investment. Take it away, David.
Okay, well, thank you, Christopher. As Christopher said, my name is David Mittling. I am the COO of Spectral. We are a new space company with offices in Singapore and the United States that's developing quantum communication systems for satellites. For the viewers at home, you may recognize me from my past experience. For 20 years, I worked at major satellite manufacturers in the geo communications world. And that's how I got to be involved with APSCC. But in the last 5 years, I made the move over to startups that are involved with the space community. And so with that, it's been a dynamic 5 years. And now we're reaching a point where we're starting to see some very interesting companies grow and rise, and some fall. This year 2020 has been a challenging year for pretty much all industries, but how is the space industry holding up? And very particular, how are new space companies holding up? With me today are three panelists that have very diverse range of businesses, representing some of the best that has to offer with new space community in the Asia Pacific region in particular. To address that very question. Now, one of the themes of various panels at APSCC has been the kind of the space economy investment trends. In particular, in this year, the challenging year around COVID-19. So our panel here today is there to address kind of the new space perspective on these trends. It's obviously a very well-known issue that COVID-19 is impacting all forms of the economy, including the space economy. And I think as a starting point, as a reference for us, for our panel, I'm going to lean on a previously taped session back in August 25th, season 1, episode 2 of the APSCC series, where Carissa Christensen from Bryce Space and Technology talked at length about the impacts of COVID-19 and other kind of long-term trends within the space industry. So now our panel gets a chance to tackle this from the new space perspective. So let's start first with an introduction to our panelists. I will start with Mr. Yasunori Yamazaki from Axo Space. Why don't you give an introduction to yourself and your company, and then we'll go on to the other panelists.
Thank you, David. My name is Yasu Yamazaki. I'm the Director and Chief Business Officer of Axo Space. Axo Space, we're essentially a space technology company based here in Tokyo. However, we do have quite a bit of history. Started back in 2008 from a very small and insufficient resource in the Tokyo University. Fast forward 2020, we now have our own building in the middle of Tokyo, where we also have our own clean room, where we actually build our spacecraft. We are currently working very, very hard to establish a orbital infrastructure called Axo Globe, in order to decentralize access to Earth observation data so that anyone can access to actionable Earth observation data so that they can make, hopefully, smarter decisions. I'm very excited to be part of this panel and share our perspective on what's challenging for us because of the invisible enemy against humanity, but also what's exciting because of this new economy or the new environment that we are facing. So thanks so much, David. Looking forward to this panel.
Okay, well, thank you, Yamazaki-san. Next introduction, I'll turn it over to Mr. Aaron Kemmer from Maiden Space.
Hi, I'm Aaron Kemmer from Maiden Space. We started the company in 2010, about 10 years old, and we are an in-space and robotics manufacturing company. Biggest things we've done is in 2014, we launched the first 3D printers to the International Space Station, where we built the first parts kind of off of planet Earth. Since then, we've done over a dozen different space missions to the ISS with multiple manufacturing facilities. And we're now developing robotic systems for satellites, particularly robotic arms in Europe, and as well as in-space manufactured satellites, where we're building components for satellites kind of in space. So the name Maiden Space kind of implies, the brand. For the first 5 years, I was the kind of CEO of the company. Last 5 years, I've been chairman. And just recently, we actually, which kind of can apply, it all happened during COVID, kind of sold the company, or majority of it, to Redwire Space, who I'm now on the board of. All that kind of in the last decade. Yeah.
All right, very interesting. All right, and our third and final panelist is Mr. Shuji Ogawa from PD Aerospace.
Oh, nice to meet you. My name is Shuji Ogawa. I am CEO and the CTO of this company. We started the company on 2007, so 13 years passed. Now we are developing a new type of spacecraft. Our spacecraft has this winged, not vertical launch, but horizontal takeoff and landing. And we are developing a new type engine. Our engine is switched. Our engine can switch the jet mode to rocket mode. My patent is just a switching system in the new engine. They're based on pulse detonation engine. It's very simple structure, so it's a powerful engine. When we got this new engine, you can fly from the airport or conventional airport, from conventional airport to the space. We are aiming to start the space tourism. At first, just a very rich person can go to space, but in the future, we will take a whole family to go to the space. So now we got a small agreement with the Okinawa prefecture. This is a southern of Japan, the small island. We will build the small spaceport in this island. The island has very beautiful sea, so you can see the beautiful sea and beautiful sky, and also the beautiful earth from the space. And also we get the agreement with Colorado Air and Spaceport in United States. Finally, we will transport from Japan to the US by using our new type spacecraft. Maybe it takes 2 hours. It's a very good opportunity to fast moving in the future. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. I can't wait.
Yeah, same here. For somebody who does a lot of international travel, that sounds great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about the main question, which is on every panel that you see out there, which is, you represent 3 dynamic companies three growing companies that are looking to expand and do interesting things. But 2020 is a challenging year. We have COVID-19, and that's been an impact across the board just for everybody, including the space industry. So I want to play a clip from the panel session on August 25th, where Carissa talked at length about the general impact to space industries due to COVID-19. So let's watch the clip real quick, and then I'll open up with a question.
So the COVID impact on the satellite industry to date has and on space activities more broadly, has generally been moderated by the fact that space and satellite activities are often regarded as critical services or critical infrastructure. And so companies have been able to operate and remain open in many nations. We've seen, looking at the specific segments of the industry, we've seen manufacturing processes slow due to requirements associated with operating in factories, social distancing, the need for cleaning. We've seen ESA, we've seen a number of governments, we've seen prime contractors accelerate payments to mitigate supply chain impacts. We have seen in some nations that lower tier suppliers are more significantly affected because they're not so clearly identified or aligned with the critical infrastructure. And so that has had a ripple effect in some.
So Carissa makes the point that COVID-19 really isn't have a major impact, at least to the space infrastructure, because it's considered critical infrastructure. However, it does create, for just general space companies, problems with operations. For example, your facilities are closed, your ability to work with suppliers is constrained, your ability to work with customers is constrained. So my question for the panel is, what have been the impacts that you've seen since earlier this year due to COVID-19? Has it been major? And just generally, how has it impacted your operations? So I'll start with you, Yamazaki-san, and see, we'll go around and just get everybody's opinion on how has COVID-19 impacted you and your company.
So obviously a very, very important question for us, Axo Space, and probably for everyone else. So I like to approach answering this question from three different angles. So to operate a company called Axo Space, we have the administrative part, the manufacturing part, and the marketing and sales part. So these are the three important pillars to make Axo Space successful. So I'll go with the easy part, the administration part. So prior to COVID-19, we have already accelerated process of digitizing most of our administrative processes. So this was fairly easy transition for us because everything was already remotely possible, including the e-signing. And I like to highlight this because those of you who may know Japan, we are very much a culture of hanko, which is a stamp. Axo Space, we took early initiative to eradicate or minimize this process, and so the administration was fairly a smooth transition for us. Let me go to the second easy part, which is the marketing and sales. Obviously, limited travel is not the best sort of way to do sales activity, but luckily we have been lucky enough to be invited to speak at a conference like this, And through these conferences, we get exposed, and these conferences have been able to sort of help us create awareness for our company and the initiatives that we are taking. And so virtually, we're getting contacted, and that has been fairly working well for us. Maybe we're just lucky. Now, the most difficult part is the manufacturing part. So Axo Space, just like any other manufacturing company, we are a startup building physical hardware in-house. So how did we cope with this? Very, very challenging. But I looked back, and see, how we did it. And overall, I feel it was a fairly smooth transition as well. Maybe for a couple of reasons. First, just like administrative processes, we have been working very hard to digitize and automate our manufacturing process. This has nothing to do with COVID, but this was already part of our transformational process that Axo Space was taking. So this actually coincidentally helped us during the COVID transition. And secondly, because of this digitization and automation that we have already implemented prior to COVID, we also was able to accelerate the other manufacturing related processes that we have not yet implemented. In fact, because of this external environment that forced us to change, we are now probably stronger compared to before in terms of the way we manufacture, and which translates to the value that we can create to or transfer to the customer. So overall, maybe we're just lucky, but the transition has been fairly smooth among all the three pillars that makes us that helps us be successful as a company.
Okay, now that's very, very good points. Yeah, Aaron, how about Made in Space? How have you seen the impacts to your business and operations due to COVID?
Yeah, I think, like Chris pointed out, like a space is considered critical infrastructure. I agree with what was just said, that the manufacturing component, that was by far and away the most difficult one to kind of figure out. Quarter two of this year, I would say, was the most challenging because it just came out of nowhere, depending on how much you were paying attention. But we were able to adapt really well. We had strong leadership from our kind of CEO in the US, running Made in Space US, and then our CEO or operations manager in Made in Space Europe, with our kind of like robotics startup there. Where we essentially, we did as much social distancing as kind of like possible, kind of in the office, while still allowing like, engineers to kind of manufacture everything that could, go remote. I think in quarter two, went remote, like, design, as an obvious one, administrative, as an obvious one. I think marketing. It's a really good point. Like the space industry is really built, business is built in conferences like these, and we're finally starting to see a few of them kind of back up again, like this one. And but I think kind of business goes on, and I'd say it's like almost like 80-20. Business kind of happened this year. Like things that needed to happen did happen. I might be of a minority opinion where I think that a lot of stuff that is remote kind of will stay remote. for quite some time. Maybe just even for cost reasons alone, by maybe only need to have a manufacturing facility rather than everybody in office, kind of all the time. I also think employees and team members are kind of going to be used to being able to work from home. It's like, hey, I work from home. Why do I need to go back into the office? I think right before the lockdown happened, I actually flew to Europe as we were launching our robotics lab for Main Space Europe. Is building a productized robot arm that it's called the Stark robot arm that whether it's space tugs or anything else that you need on a spacecraft, you can buy. And so we just kind of cutting the ribbon. It was beginning of March, end of February. Was my last large group of people that I was kind of around, and I think it was the week before everything started shutting down with what was going on in Italy and so kind of looking back on that time. Since then, we just adapted really, kind of fast. And I think our European branch, until startup, a lot of it was in the design phase. Most of that went to work from home. And then for our Archinaut satellite, and other hardware being built in the U.S., we had to keep some of the engineers in office, but took the measures that we could, and we've been able to adapt pretty well. Like it sounds like Axo Space did. So.
No, that's good perspective. Like you said, it was a sudden shift for everybody. So differently from what you were saying and what Zaki-san's saying, kind of having that open flexibility of being a new space company allowed you to adapt probably a little bit quicker. How about you, Ogawa-san? What did you see at PD Aerospace, the impacts due to COVID?
Okay, I think there are big 4 impacts for us. The first impact is the same situation that the other venture company. We are also the manufacturing company, so we couldn't get some important parts and devices. So it's very difficult to progress our development. This is a big impact. The second impact is also the same situation. We couldn't move to another location. We will develop the plane and the engine. So we can't all development in the in-house. So we have to need some big location, runway and other. There are no persons place. So, but in Japan, the Hokkaido and is a very good location for our testing. But Hokkaido was the downlock, so we couldn't move to the our member. So we stopped the development. The third impact is the investing situation. Many our main investor is main investors are HS and ANA Holdings. They are traveling company and air carrier. So their main business the down. So they can't invest the additional funding. So we can't ask them much money additionally. So they had a very big impact. So the investing situation has changed completely. The fourth impact is hiring. Now we are over 30 members. Over 30% is the foreigner, and now we are our hiring is open in domestic and overseas. But overseas member can't come to Japan, so our hiring pace will be down. So they are our typical the big impacts. That's all.
Okay, now that's again very good perspective, and I think a lot of your comments are kind of common among the other what the other panelists are saying, as well as other space traditional and new space companies are experiencing. So these are all very good perspectives.
Just a moment. One thing. Good. We got the good points because the major big company aerospace industries member goes to the another hiring field. So we are a startup company. We can't. So far, we can't access the good person. But now the COVID situation damaged the big company. So the big company lay off and to fire the good engineer. So we can access that person. It's a good situation.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, we could probably debate here the positives and minuses of being a small, nimble company. But, like you said, that is probably one of the potential positive impacts is that your ability to recruit experienced aerospace professionals is gotten probably a bit better, right? It's, the larger traditional companies, are just kind of doing the typical layoffs that come with this kind of situation where, now that opens up the door for you for doing a little more recruiting. So that's a very good point. Thank you, Ogawa-san. And I actually want to pull on one other comment you made too, which was, we've all talked about kind of the delays and issues with the operations. Okay, it's common across all the technology companies. But you also talked a bit about how this has impacted your ability to go out for investment. So I'm going to turn to another clip from August 25th, where Carissa talked at length about Bryce Space and Technology puts together a really detailed quarterly report talking about the new space investment. They tally it all up. They put the nice charts together, pie charts, all the different things. So let's look at the clip real quick, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions related to what you've seen for the impact on funding. So let me run that real quick.
Looking at what that total investment was again, this is investment in any space company that has at some point in its history received venture or angel funding. And in 2019, that number was nearly $6 billion US, a significant increase, almost 2/3 from 2018. Now, in 2020, we saw a slowdown of investment related to COVID. We're starting to see that pace, that activity ramp up. We will certainly see a total number. We anticipate seeing a total number less than 2019, but the investment does continue.
So one of her points is 2019 was a banner year for space investment. However, 2020 has seen a lag. But her opinion was that, at least from the survey that Bryce did, that investment has just started to pick up. It was slow through the middle of the year, maybe due to just the kind of COVID-19, the uncertainty is around it. But now that it's picking back up, and her theory is that 2020 will still be down from 2019, which was a banner year for space investment. But at least it's going to kind of be strong in Q3, Q4. Now, Ogawa-san, you mentioned some of the constraints, particularly with one of your particular investors that was particularly impacted by COVID-19. Maybe Yamazaki-san or Aaron, what have you seen as far as kind of the reaction from the investment community?
Yeah, I mean, I could jump in. So I would definitely agree that 2020 is down from 2019. Now, when we started Main Space in 2010, I still think 2020 is probably 10 to 100x more investor friendly than back then. 2019 was filled with a lot of optimism, at least from the investors I talked to. A lot of new space investors, meaning new investors into space. I think tying back to an earlier point about being able to hire top tier talent from really experienced aerospace companies, I think part of it is the ability for startups to move, but also the brand of new space companies is becoming better, more reputable. Companies like SpaceX turning into juggernauts, so people are willing to take a little bit more risk with their careers, especially when investments kind of coming in. I would say Q2, middle of the year, a lot of investors were kind of treading water, not because they didn't have the money to invest, but they just had no idea what was going to happen to the economy. Maybe thinking, okay, can I get a better deal if I wait 6 months to kind of invest? I think there's still a lot of active investors, even during that kind of time period. Like I said, Maiden Space was, acquired, by a really large kind of investment group at Redwire Space, and which is now building like the next generation kind of space, infrastructure. So I think, as Krista kind of pointed out, it's gonna pick back up. It's starting to now, as people are seeing, and my guess is not just in the US, but also like worldwide, the next 5 years are going to just really grow significantly, a lot. Yeah.
Okay. No, I like that optimism. How about you, Yamazaki-san? I mean, Axo Space has done a great job with fundraising and getting good investment. So what have you seen lately that's maybe changed for the better or worse?
Sure. I do agree with most of what Aaron just said. To understand the Axo Space situation, we really have to look back into our history. So as I mentioned, we started back in 2008 with almost no money. We were poor. So we're lucky. We managed to raise substantial fund to grow our company. But because we have a humble beginning, we have been very careful in how we manage and use our resource. So it is no doubt the current situation is a big storm, but we have been preparing for this kind of storm to come. So luckily, the current external environment has minimal impact into our operation. However, I do agree with Aaron that probably in February, March, we did see a hiatus in the appetite from the investment community, simply because there was no clarity in what's going to happen. But I am from the finance industry, and I am aware that these cycles will always recover. And so probably because I am from the finance industry, I was not sort of surprised with the reaction from the market. And now in October, when we realized that looks like we will prevail, the humanity will prevail, I think the sentiment that we have seen back in February and March has probably softened. The negative sentiment has softened, and we see probably more optimism. Specifically in the market in Japan, I think there are more optimism towards the new space, probably driven by the appetite from the Japanese government to support with grants and various schemes to help drive the space economy, especially from the new space companies. So we're feeling very optimistic. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's a good point. And actually, I think the next clip also, Carissa talks a little bit about how governments are also trying to step up to supplement this. But before I play that clip, I'll go back to you again, Ogawa-san, because you mentioned that one of your primary investors is a company that had a major impact due to COVID-19. But do you change your investment strategy, your business strategy a little bit, or do you kind of share the optimism of Yamazaki-san and Aaron as far as that things will improve in the months and years ahead? I mean, what's your sense, Ogawa-san?
Oh, it's difficult to say that now in Japan, investing situation is bad, but many people want to take a good story, good news. The new space industry has very vivid and motivative. So corporate venture capital has no power actually, but a pure venture capital and some angel has a big money still. So when we got a new step and we will share or show that good news, they will invest the next round and take a good situation. So so we have to take action, I think.
No, that's all right. That's fair. And I think just all companies have to adapt and adjust to this environment, and particularly new space companies. At the very least, I think it's very easy to at least kind of change your business plan and structure, and shift a little bit, a bit more nimble than maybe larger traditional aerospace companies. So kind of pulling at a thread where we're talking about international investment, in particular, not just the traditional VCs, but also kind of government supplementing it with stimulus. Let me play another clip that from the August 25th session for the group.
Who are those investors? Many are in the U.S. The U.S. was the nexus of both the most startup companies and the most investors, but we have really seen that trend change and evolve. So 506 non-U.S. investors across 41 countries over the time period that we've been tracking. China is home to a significant number, well over 100, followed by Japan, the United Kingdom. Those are the most significant number of investors. And then also India, Canada, Israel, Spain, and Australia have a significant number.
All right. So in that clip, Carissa talked about, the U.S., at least as far as traditional investors, kind of has a very large ecosystem of, traditional VCs. But internationally, there's a lot of, investors stepping up, particularly in Japan. She highlights Japan as a case where the investment community is very strong, and there's a large number of investors based in Japan that have invested in space communities. So I guess this is primarily for Yamazaki-san and Ogawa-san. Do you find that you are finding good support from the investors there, or do you kind of have to look for a mix with US and European investors, or can you just work with kind of traditional Japan-based investors? I don't know if either one of you want to field that question.
Ogawa-san, please.
We have not yet to access the overseas investors, but now we are planning to do that. Maybe we will use some I don't know, trader or something. So If you have some good information, please give us.
Yeah, how about you, Yamazaki-san? I mean, it's...
Sure. We are currently we are blessed with the strong support from the Japanese investment community, from the new investors as well as from the existing investors. Probably we are lucky because our existing investors are very strong. Part of the reason we have a beautiful office in the middle of a building in the middle of Tokyo is because we have a strong support from one of our investors who owns the building. So I would say that for now, for at least the short term, we are very happy with the opportunities here in Japan.
Okay, no, that's good. You know, she went on to talk a lot about how governments, particularly the Japanese government, has been supportive of new and innovative space companies like both of yours. And I do feel that's, you know, obviously something that your companies could and should take advantage of. She also talked just in general about how there isn't that kind of connectivity, at least in the United States. But then I thought about Made in Space. So I was attending the virtual, NASA was sponsoring a virtual conference the last couple of days called the Innovation and Opportunity Conference. And panel after panel, the NASA people talked about Made in Space as a success story. So, you know, it seems like Made in Space has been very good about kind of leveraging some of these grant opportunities with the US government. Do you find that's kind of a key part of your business? Does that help with outside investment? Do you lean on that a little bit more in this kind of environment we're in today? I don't know, Aaron, if you have any comments on that.
Yeah. I mean, we've, you know, ever since the very beginning, actually, very similar to Yamazaki-san, we were very poor in the beginning. I think he said 2008 is when they started. We started in 2010, and I remember really early on, you know, it was kind of my decision. Some of my co-founders wanted to, you know, go raise investment funds right away, and my message to the group was like, look, we need to learn how to work with NASA and the U.S. government, because if we can't do that, I don't think we're, you know, as a U.S. company, we're going to have a space company. And so I think NASA's been amazing. We worked really well with them and figured out how to rapidly iterate hardware. Our first 3D printer to space, I think, was like, you know, 11-month mission to the ISS, which at the time was a really kind of, you know, record. And you know, that was with working with NASA. And so definitely leveraging both their you know, their grants, but also their skill set is something we've learned how to do. And we've also expanded internationally already. So last year, as I was mentioning, we opened up a European office. Now, for a U.S. company to go to Europe, I mean, doesn't happen a lot. But I think, you know, if you look at like why we like started the company and you know, the further out their vision for space is an international game, and even you got the International Space Station, and so I think you know, kind of expanding to Europe really allowed us to hire you know, different people from all over the world, whereas with our U.S. you know, company it was much harder, mainly actually all U.S. citizens there. But with Europe, we've hired, you know, now, and you know, people from South America, people from Asia, people from all over. And I would love it if, you know, it's kind of not 100% up to me, it's, you know, up to the team what they want to do, but I think, you know, expanding even further I think would be great. And I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I think as space gets cheaper, which it definitely is over the next decade, and it has this past decade, it's going to be a lot easier for countries all over. Like, you know, the Philippines is a great example. They just created the Philippine Space Agency. You know, and you know, they didn't have a space agency until this year. And so I think countries all over are going to start getting more and more into space as it gets, cheaper. And once PD Aerospace starts flying people on tourism, you'll see, tourists all over Asia like becoming astronauts and stuff. So that is a little bit of an optimistic view, and maybe it's a long tail. Maybe it's over the next decade rather than the next 2 years. But I think it'll get cheaper, and you'll see more expansion, across both sides.
And that's a good point. I mean, all three companies represented here, you guys have great business models that if it works in your home country, it works internationally. But it's always that challenge of when do you expand your team and operations overseas. Now, Ogawa-san, you mentioned in your introduction that you're looking to open a facility in Colorado. So what was the thought process there? I mean, obviously it's a great business and it has an opportunity in the US just like anywhere else, but what was the thought process for making that move?
Okay. Now we got LOI agreement. The Colorado Air and Spaceport need winged type spacecraft team. Last 2 years ago, they came to Japan and they researched all Japan new space companies. Then finally, they chosen our company. So we started to talk with them. They have that over 2,400 meter runway, 2 runways. It's very good situation. And also the Colorado Air and Spaceport is near the Denver city. Denver has the international space airport, and also there are many space industry is there. So in the future, we want to hire from the Denver engineers. And now we have started to fly our experiment plan in Japan. After that, we will start the Colorado location, the same thing. So in the future, we will connect the 2 ways from Japan to Colorado and also the return. This is a good partner for us.
That's outstanding. So, I live in Denver right now. And the reason I'm in Denver was I was in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and I had with my startup that got nice incentives to move to Colorado. They're very interested in having new space companies in Colorado. And Christopher is also a native of the area, so good choice. And I'm looking forward to you having that flight because like I said, I love the fact I can get a quick flight over to Tokyo. That would be outstanding. How about you, Yamazaki-san? Are you, obviously Axo Space is doing great business. Earth observation and imagery is, obviously is an international business. What's your plans for expansion outside of Japan?
Sure. Well, we're always thinking the potential of having a outpost somewhere beyond Japan. Probably the main reason would be to make our operation more efficient. So prior to the COVID, for example, myself, I used to travel almost every week to different parts of the world. And so I didn't get to enjoy my own country, Japan. So that was interesting life, but obviously not the most efficient way to operate. By having, let's say, a beautiful office in the natural, nature-friendly Denver, that would maybe help us to, at least me, travel less let's say within Europe. Also, probably one of the other reasons we may have an office overseas is currently we have 80 people in total, but more than half of our engineers are from outside of Japan. So if we have our office, for example, in Europe, where many of our engineers come from, maybe we may have more people interested in working for Axo Space, simply because moving to another country, especially to the Far East, is not a move that everyone can take, especially if you have a family. So that could also be one of the other reasons that we may have an office somewhere. But of course, it's not an easy choice, and I would like to seek advice, for example, from Ogawa-san or Aaron, who is thinking or has done it already.
Yeah, I think we're kind of running up to the end of our session here. I guess open the floor for anybody else to have final comments. I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a terrible year. It's been a terrible year for all of us, and just the world as a whole. But we can look forward to kind of things opening up, vaccines and pandemic ending in 2021, and we can expand and go forward. I think this situation is, it's encouraging to hear from all of you that we all have this common experience, and that you are coming out of coming out of this and doing well. I don't know if anybody has any final comments, any thoughts on what they're expecting in 2021, but happy to open up the panel if anybody has any bold predictions for once the world opens back up again. I know. Go ahead, Aaron, please.
I mean, definitely for this industry, I think you'll see a lot of attendance at the conferences. For those of us that maybe have fatigue from going to so many, I think similar to Yamazaki-san, where I was almost on an international flight every week or every other week, and whether it was in U.S., Europe, or Asia. But I think I'm actually looking forward to that happening again. Yeah.
I also want to add to that and say that I like the fact that I can join any conference from my own home now. But what I miss is I get to meet Aaron today, and I feel like I want to, grab a beer and learn what his life is all about. But this virtual situation, doesn't allow us to do that. So it's efficient, but I think it's missing something that we all miss. And looking forward to having the opportunity to meet in person again.
Yeah, we'll have to do a virtual cheers, kanpai.
Bye.
Bye. But you're right; it's not nearly the same. Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up. I think this is also a common experience among the four of us. I was at the same point you were. When the world closed, I was at the satellite conference in DC. That was the last time I was on a flight. At the time, I was happy not going to conferences, but now I'm looking forward to the chance where I can go to APSCC next year. In fact, we were supposed to have APSCC in a couple of weeks in Manila. So now we can look forward to the real thing. With that, I will turn it over to our host, Christopher. Why don't you take us home? And thank you, panelists.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, panelists. What an excellent session, and I'm feeling homesick for Denver already. And missing all of you in person. Thank you all very, very much for participating in today's panel discussion. Some excellent insights there. We really do thank you for your time. And thank all of you who joined the session this week. Obviously, we look forward to having you come back again next week. Next week's session is about satellite constellations and will be brought to you by SES. In the meantime, thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Yasu, Shoji. Thank you very much, Aaron. Really appreciate all of your effort today.